This week on DWF News.
On this episode of the DWF News, we're going to be talking about some geopolitical structures regarding Asia. We're not going to be getting into Russia. We're going to save that later for our European Heritage Month episode. This time we're going to really dive in on East Asia, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. Also, when we view the Middle East separate from Asian politics as a whole, and we view them as their own region. So we will also be having a Heritage Month regarding their issues in geopolitics as well. But what we're really going to focus on is the core leaders in the area of East Asia, South Asia, and the Southeast Asia front. And we're going to be looking at some of the not geopolitics, but the demographics that affect the region. Then we're going to talk a little bit about this new global structure that's being built, the new world structure, when regarding India, China, and Japan. Basically what things will be changing in the region regarding immigration, regarding trade, and also military and war possibilities. This is going to be a short episode because I'm going to be getting out of town, but we will continue on to talk more about Asian culture and heritage, and hopefully we could talk about the DWF not DWF, but WF in Japan and South Asia as well, because they could tell you more about the history that we have, which is very rich in the Asian area. You would be amazed that the World Federalist Movement actually started out there in 1948. But that's not for this episode, that's for the next episode, hopefully. I don't know, because I have to do a lot of research. But like we said before, we're going to continue on to have a Heritage Month for each culture or region, which we think is important to share the World Federalist views and explain how each region plays a very important role in building towards a world federal government. I hope you like the two segments I put together in this episode. Let's check it out.
This week on DWF News.
Asia, the largest continent on Earth. Population 4.4 billion people. GDP $30.2 trillion. The largest cities are Tokyo, Jakarta, Delhi, Seoul, and Shanghai. The major players in Asia are China with a GDP of $13.4 trillion and a population of 1.4 billion people. China has a unitarian one-party authoritarian political system. This means in China there are no elections and there is no political competing ideas, making China mostly a top-down system. You may read that China is a communist or socialist state. This is incorrect in a way, because over time China has turned into more of a state capitalist system. You could also even argue that China is more right-wing than they are left-wing, because they don't support democracy at all. This is completely different from India, which is the largest democracy in the world, with a population of 1.3 billion people, but an annual GDP of $2.6 trillion. India can be considered a centrist country with diverse demographics in every area, from age, ethnicity, religion, and culture. This diversity at times is a strength and weakness to India, because their art, history, and multicultural society is on its own level and cannot be compared really to any other nation. This diversity at the same time makes it very difficult for India to organize on the national level and compete with other nations like the US and China. Japan is the next major leader in the area, with a GDP of $5.6 trillion and a population of 126.4 million people. The Japanese have a constitutional monarchy, which means the country is still technically owned by the royal family, but the head of state is elected by the citizens of the nation. Japan is one of the most technically advanced countries in the world and by far one of the most innovative. The main issue facing Japan is their aging population, which will affect their ability to lead in the tech and industrial sectors. The population trend has been affecting the Japanese economy over the past 3 decades. Then there is South Korea. The country has a population of 51 million people and an annual GDP of $1.7 trillion. South Korea, like Japan, is a technically advanced powerhouse. When compared with the size of their population, their economy is pretty large. Also, like Japan, the effect of an aging population seems to be hurting their economy. South Korea largely depends on the support of Japan and the United States. Lastly, there is Indonesia. The country has a population of 261.2 million people and an annual GDP of $1.1 trillion. Indonesia has budding markets in multiple areas, with the key sectors including agriculture and textile. Indonesia is a constitutional republic, and the political conflict within the country and around it tends to affect its organizing capabilities. Going into the 21st century, the continent of Asia will return to its superior role in trade it had before the industrial era, when the West experienced all of the power over the last 300 years. The question we must answer is, what will the power shift look like as change begins?
This week on DWF News.
China, Japan, India. These are the nations which play an important role in the region. The question everyone is thinking about is, will China become the world's new superpower? Or will the US and China be forced into a new Cold War? The reality, of course, is much different than what you may be hearing from pundits. The US is going to do whatever they can do to either stay ahead of China or create obstacles to hold them back. There is a chance the US and China could unite, but the current political regimes don't see that as a possibility. When looking at India, you see a similar recipe cooking which resembles the economic emergence of China. It will likely take 10 to 20 years before we see a grand transformation in the country because of the lack of central government action and the undeveloped infrastructure in India. But the young and eager population ready to improve and grow their economic outcomes shows much promise. As their economy expands, their influence in the area will as well. On the other hand, Japan has totally different issues than China and India. Japan's decreasing population is at the core of their problems. If they hope to continue growing, their industrial sector, which is the lifeblood of their economy, the Japanese may have to open up their border for more free movement of foreign labor. The ideal place that Japan will find this labor will be in Southeast Asia, which means going forward, the waterways will be a key area of focus for them. We will likely begin to see a shift soon, and within the next 10 years, we will see a massive difference in the way Japan deals with ASEAN members. What this new world structure will mean is a shared power system, and believe it or not, the US involvement in the region's politics will affect how the world changes going into the future. If the US and China work together, we could see a world of growth we have never experienced before. And if the latter happens, then we could see war like we have never seen before.